What's going on, everybody? Nick Whalen here for RotoWire. We're talking some fantasy basketball, players to consider starting and players to consider leaving on the bench for the week ahead. We'll start with guys that we want in the lineup this week. Donte DiVincenzo of the Minnesota Timberwolves. It's been a bit of a rough start to the season for DiVincenzo, not shooting the ball well, but I think it comes around. Minnesota needs more out of Donte DiVincenzo offensively. Still wouldn't be surprised if at some point he ends up starting for this team. Even with the struggles, DiVincenzo is still taking 7 threes a game. He's giving you points, he's giving you rebounds, he's giving you assists, he's giving you steals. He does have a 4-game week coming up with 2 really good matchups against Portland to begin the week. Get Sacramento and Phoenix later in the week as well. On a 4-game week, I'm putting DiVincenzo in my lineups. I want to talk some Washington Wizards. Bub Carrington, the rookie guard out of Pittsburgh. If you've watched anything that I've done on the fantasy basketball side for the last couple of months, I've been pounding the table for this guy. And if you're in injury hell, like I am in a few leagues, I'm starting Bub Carrington on a 4-game week coming up for Washington. Yeah, the production has been nothing crazy so far, but he's given you steady numbers across the board over his last 5, 12 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal. We'll live with that. Most importantly, though, he's going to be a 30-plus minute guy for the Wizards. At least it seems. That's been the case so far this season. He's got some good matchups on the schedule this week. The Wizards get the Spurs, they get the Atlanta Hawks, they get the Detroit Pistons. And while we're on the topic of Washington, I think about starting Bilal Coulibaly on a 4-game week. You're going to have to live with some ups and downs, but on balance, there's been a lot more good than bad so far for Coulibaly. He was the lottery pick for the Wizards in 2023. He gives you points, boards, steals, threes, played at least 33 minutes in each of Washington's last 5 games. Kyle Kuzma, of course, still missing time with a groin injury. Another guard I want in my lineups this week, Jose Alvarado of the New Orleans Pelicans. Not the biggest fan of Alvarado in real life, but he's somebody that should be rostered right now, still available on the waiver wire in a ton of leagues. CJ McCollum, he's going to miss at least another week, perhaps beyond that. DeJounte Murray's out. Herb Jones is out. Trey Murphy is out for New Orleans. Simply put, the Pels are extremely banged up, and they need Jose Alvarado to give them big minutes. He's hit 10 threes over his last 2 games. He's averaging 3.4 made three-pointers over his last 5. He's also giving you 5 or 6 assists per night. Of course, he's going to give you a steal and a half per game. Jose Alvarado's averaging 33 minutes per game since CJ McCollum went down. One more guard to get in your lineups this week, and hopefully you've already been starting him. He's been fantastic so far this season, but if you're not, this is a good week to do it. Norman Powell of the LA Clippers. He scored at least 20 points in 7 straight games. Doesn't give you a whole lot outside of the scoring and the threes, but he will give you some assists, some steals, and the 3-pointers have come on high volume so far this year. 4.6 makes per game on 8.7 attempts over his last 7. The Clippers need him to score on a nightly basis. There's a pretty strong case to be made that he is their second option beyond James Harden. So I don't think this is going to go anywhere anytime soon. On a 4-game week, I'm putting Norman Powell in my lineup. All right, now the tough part. Some players to consider sitting this week. And we got to start with the 76ers. They're dealing with an injury to Tyrese Maxey. He's going to miss at least a week or 2. And I want to talk about Paul George. He made his debut this week for the Sixers, has a couple games now under his belt. Sixers only play 3 games this week, and we need to consider that the first 2 of those are a back-to-back set on Tuesday and Wednesday. So Joel Embiid is going to make his debut on Tuesday. We know for a fact he won't be out there on Wednesday, so it's for sure a 2-game week for him. I do wonder if the Sixers might do the same with Paul George. Does he sit out one half of the back-to-backs? In that case, all of a sudden it's a 2-game week. We may not get anything definitive on that until it's too late from Philly, but I think there's a good chance he could miss one of those games. Again, without Tyrese Maxey, you're expecting a lot out of Paul George when he is on the court. So, in deeper leagues, it's still justifiable to throw him out there. But if he only ends up playing 2 games, you could find a better 4-game option on your bench. We have 2 teams this week, Golden State and Denver, that only have 2 games on the schedule. So if you're in a weekly lineups league, that is a big disadvantage. So I think you got to hold out Michael Porter Jr. for sure in Denver. He's been playing great of late, but you can replace his production with a 4-game player. You have 16 teams with 4 games this week. So I would not chance it on Michael Porter Jr. Same probably applies for Jamal Murray. We'll see where he's at injury-wise at that point. I mean, Jokic, he just gives you so much every single night that probably leave him in the lineup. I mean, if you're in a really shallow league, maybe you have a better 4-game option, but you probably just chance it with Jokic. Same goes for Steph Curry in Golden State. I mean, again, in a shallower league, there is a case to bench him, for a player on a 4-game week, but I would get every Warrior not named Stephen Curry out of my lineups this week. Another player to consider sitting at guard, Terry Rozier of the Miami Heat. I'm pretty high on Rozier, got off to a good start to the season, but he struggled of late. It is just a 3-game week coming up for Miami. Now, the matchups are good. Detroit Indy, and then Indy again. Those are exploitable defenses, but we've seen Rozier struggle over the last couple of games, just 17 total points over his last 2. He's only taken 16 shots, been cold from 3 in that span. Still gives you decent rebounding and assists to provide that floor, but he's not really giving you a whole lot in terms of defensive numbers. If you have even a decent 4-game option like Jaden Ivey, Kobe White, Norm Powell, even someone like Donte DiVincenzo, I would think about that this week rather than rolling the dice on Rozier with 3 games. A couple big men to consider sitting this week. Brook Lopez of the Milwaukee Bucks. And this is contingent on your format and more than anything contingent on how badly you need blocks. Specifically, in a 14 or a 16 team league, you're probably still rolling Lopez out there with 3 games, but he's really struggled offensively to begin the year. He's shooting under 40% from the field, under 30% from 3 on high volume. He's never been a good rebounder for his size. That's only gotten worse as he's gotten deeper into his career. It doesn't really give you assists. Blocks and steals have been solid. So if you need the blocks, again, you can start him. But on a 3-game week, I think you might be able to find better production elsewhere. If you're just hunting blocks, someone like Alex Sarr, who's averaging almost 3 blocks per game. He's got a 4-game week. Daniel Gafford in Dallas, he's on a 4-game week. Even Yves Missy down in New Orleans, who has a 4-game week. Those could be reasonable options over Brook Lopez. And then Clint Capela of the Atlanta Hawks played well in the Hawks' recent win over the Knicks. But prior to that, he's been one of the bigger disappointments of the season in terms of guys you drafted a little bit later. Only has 1 block in his last 5 games. He has just 6 total blocks on the season. We're talking over 200 minutes at this point. Struggling to give you anything meaningful in terms of points and rebounds as well. Obviously, not someone you expect anything from in terms of assists or threes or steals. So much like Brook Lopez, you could find somebody who should be able to pretty easily outpace Clint Capela right now on a 4-game week. He's just not giving you enough in terms of blocks or rebounds where I'd really worry about it too much. All right, that's going to do it for our start and sit recommendations this week. Let us know if you got any questions, any comments. Let us know right here. We love hearing from you. Who are you starting? Who are you holding out of your lineups this week? Go check out rotowire.com/try, TRY, free access to everything on our site. You can see our projections, our weekly rankings, our DFS optimizer, everything on our site, rotowire.com/try. And last thing, while you're here, if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button right there. That way you won't miss any of our content here at the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball YouTube channel.